Hey everybody, Matt Geary here for the Geek Pridecast on this Monday evening. With me tonight, we have my co-host Peter Ray Allison,
Good evening, everyone.
and we are joined by special guests Patrick King
Hello.
and Pixel Murr.
Hello there.
Right, you two. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here?
What on earth are we? What are we, Patrick?
What are we? We are many things. We are friends. We're co-creators. We are currently working on a film project in Derby for our production company, Gary's Forest Productions, and we are. The film is called Slaughter Alley, and it's a sort of grindhouse
Exploitation sort of
film. Yes.
And yeah, so it's a short film, and it follows a dystopian television program called Slaughter Alley, with Alley, in which people have to fight their way through a death maze pursued by various unpleasant characters. And the concept is that if they survive, they will win a lot of money, but if they do not, they will simply be entertainment for the masses.
Yes.
So we are working on that at the moment. We've assembled a rather delightful crew of folks in the Midlands, but yeah,
Sort of kind of like a Running Man sort of thing going on.
I was thinking.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had a lot of the comparison to the Running Man, and I wish I'd spotted that comparison when I was writing it, but we're a bit too far into thinking now. But there is a I suppose there is more of a sort of there is a lot of kind of
well, we take a lot of influences from all over really, because it's not as if like the idea of a dystopian TV program is necessarily kind of new, because it's been around, like the idea of media controlling our lives and of us kind of like, I think that there was a film many years ago called, I think it was called The Year of the Sex Olympics, which is one of the first films which kind of dealt with this idea of what if horrible things were put on TV and but people just kind of watch them, and now we live in a post-reality TV society where we pretty much broadcast the worst things that you could possibly imagine.
I mean, it's funny because I was having a meeting with the actor who's playing our protagonist, Rachel Colton, today, and we were actually discussing this kind of thing, where the ideas came from and the metrics and that. And there's actually a lot of, if you look into a lot of the reality TV shows that are being made nowadays, they don't treat people very well, frankly. And I think that's what we're kind of doing, is a sort of heightened reality version of the way that society and media treats people through this kind of very kind of schlocky lens, as it were.
Very, very dehumanizing. And I mean, the Running Man is an obvious comparison, but obviously that we've got the Hunger Games as well,
of course,
and sort of and Battle Royale. But I think the thing that like Patrick's script has done is that there's really quite an element of kind of like tongue-in-cheek comedy that is not necessarily present in a lot of these properties, because it tends to be very grim dark. But yeah, as Pat said, it's quite grindhouse, it's quite exploitation. We also take, because we're both big Trauma fans as well. Yeah. We're quite big fans of Trauma pictures.
Yeah.
So it takes a couple of cues from there. So it is the idea is it's a bit grim, but it's also quite funny as well. There's quite a few sort of. Yeah.
We hope it's quite funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, the script certainly made me laugh. I may be biased.
It's funny if I say
so
so myself, but
it's sort of like black comedy in the sort of kind of very British way, because you've got like films like Dog Soldiers and stuff, which is pretty terrifying, but it's hilarious in the same way.
It is very funny and so quotable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I would say a sort of like a pitch black comedy. Hopefully, it's quotable. It was Pixel there said it was my script. It was actually co-written between myself and Sam Curd, who
Cannot forget Sam.
Yes, because he won't forgive us for not.
Oh no! Yeah.
So there's two things then. So the first one that's sort of like what popped into my head when you were talking about the how reality TV is, how people aren't treated well, how it sort of desensitizes the audience to the sort of kind of the actually suffering of the contestants because it's on TV. There's a good Darren Brown documentary about how the masses will do so. It's about a crowd mentality or mob mentality, and how that you can, if you feel like you're a part of something bigger, then you don't feel culpable for it. And it's basically a game. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but basically it's like a game show where you have they basically they get this guy and they start messing with him. Now he doesn't know. The guy doesn't know. Everybody else is in on it by the audience and this fella, and they start messing with him, like small things, and they basically get the crowd to vote on what happens to him. Something good could happen to him, something bad could happen to him. Invariably, the crowd think it's hilarious and do all the bad stuff. So it's like small things like, they drop a pint on him, or maybe some girl comes in and slaps him in the face or something like this, and they all think this is hilarious, but they progressively get worse as time goes on. And the crowd sort of, because they're all sort of masked and they're in a crowd, they sort of kind of start voting, and they're still doing some of the stuff. It's pretty bad. And then at the very end they do something and it causes him to get hit by a car, which isn't him. They sort of kind of get him in and stuff. And there's one point in time where they vote to go into his house and smash up his Xbox and smash up some of his stuff, and that was real. And then they sort of carry on, and there's a bit where they switch him, and then he gets hit by a car, and then the audience realize what they've done, like they've created this, and then like people are like absolutely mortified about it, and then they kind of come in and go, look, this part wasn't real, but everything else was. You did smash up his stuff, you did do this was because of that. And it was very eye-opening and stuff. It's like, if you can hide in a crowd, you'll do anything.
You can abdicate responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's what it reminded, when you were saying about that, that's sort of kind of what it reminded me of. I mean,
this kind of thing comes, like, because you're absolutely right, and it's been so like long lived in human society. Things like the gladiatorial combat, like the sort of it's very much like when you see sort of people literally getting torn apart in the ring, and you're like, well, that's well, we didn't do it. Yeah. It's here, but it's here for our entertainment. And I also think there's a big part of it which is sort of like the conceit of Slaughter Alley, the TV program within the script, is that people consent to do it, and in fact sort of volunteer because of the huge payout. But there is a sort of feeling with this, and with a lot of reality TV, it kind of carries on, that the people who are involved are kind of lesser, and you can look down on them, and that makes you feel good as a crowd. You can feel superior, so you're like, oh, these are like even something as kind of banal as Love Island, where everyone is sort of like laughing at these people.
I know, but it's like, it's funny you say that, because I have, one of my exes was really into it, and it was one of those things we watched together, and I watch it and I go, there's a bunch of idiots and stuff. And I had that feeling of like, these are idiots and, what the hell? But sort of, you looked a bit deeper, and a lot of them sort of came out of it in not great ways mentally and stuff. Fine. Some of them created the situations they were in, but they were still human beings, and their mental capacities was getting sort of drawn to the point where a couple of them committed suicide, and there was other issues that went on. They weren't treated very well, and it's all well and good to judge people who are on these things, but you got to understand they're still human beings and stuff, and they still have lives and stuff. As much as they might be assholes, it's easy to hide behind your TV and just judge people, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, we're just judging people with this movie.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said about the way kind of like violence is portrayed in film, and how we, watching violence and our kind of perception of the violence and how we kind of enjoy watching violence on films to a certain extent. Like, I was playing Spec Ops: The Line recently, and there's a fantastic little quote in one of the kind of loading screens which says, murder for self, killing for self is murder, killing for country is heroic, killing for entertainment is harmless. And that really kind of just, the entire game kind of gave me a lot to think about in terms of the ways violence is portrayed.
I mean, it's an interesting kind of dichotomy because, like, with the film we are making, there is this sort of like judgment of all these people watching this horrible violence on telly, but then we've put a lot of horrible violence in the film, and that's there because we put it there. You know, so it's like, are we any better? I suppose that's not something that's, I suppose, examined, but it's something that maybe we have to think about.
I mean, I think because it is like I was thinking about this earlier because so like it does take a lot of cues from sort of quite, you know, properties which are quite exploitation films, but it feels like having, because I have, you know, read through the script several times, it feels like exploitation with a heart, because the violence actually quite a lot, the violence ends up being quite sort of cathartic, which is the truth with a lot of media where we're sort of consuming violence. It's actually sort of like, it's a way, rather than a way to increase our unpleasant animal instincts, it's a way of getting them out without harming people. But yeah, it is interesting because we have put some sort of violence and some other elements in there which are a bit sort of. Is it okay? Pat, is it okay if I call it a bit sexy? It's a bit.
I think it's a bit sexy. There's yeah, no, it's a bit sexy. Can't really,
I mean,
just like me and Pete.
I am playing a part, so
yes, it's definitely
that's going to be the sexier scenes.
So Pixel, what's your position within the film itself?
Well, I mean, I am assistant director behind the scenes. I am also I have the secondary role. I have a secondary role and a tertiary role. So a secondary role of intimacy coordinator, which we thought was very important because the idea is that sort of for those who are not necessarily familiar with how the sort of roles are broken down, assistant director, I sort of generally am in charge of kind of boring sort of admin stuff on set, while Pat can sort of like focus on things like performances and sort of artistic direction and kind of work on the angles of actually being sort of creative. But this secondary role of intimacy coordinator we thought was very necessary because we do have people who are in sort of violent or sexual situations. So it's very, and I've had experience of doing that sort of stuff before, of kind of making people feel comfortable. Yeah, and we thought that was very, very necessary because we've added these elements in. But the more also, I do actually have a role in the film as a performer. So I play one of the commentators, because in Slaughter there are two sort of like commentators who are sort of like cracking wise over the horrible violence and things, sort of things, just as a sort of mediator. So I play Dave X, who is who is one of the commentators, and so I just get to say a couple of funny lines and be silly, which is absolutely delightful.
Have you got a cameo for yourself, Pat? Have you got yourself a cameo?
I do, yes, I do. I play one of the sort of hunter characters who are doing these horrible murders on this show. I show up just right at the start, and then I don't really appear elsewhere in the scene in the film, but I'm in the cold open.
Okay, that's good.
I was going to be the first victim, but my friend came along and because that's more of a fun cameo. I'll be the first victim, but my friend, a friend of mine was involved with the project, and he sort of begged me. He's like, I've always wanted to be horribly killed in a horror movie. So I was like, well, okay, then we'll swap these around.
Yeah, far be it from us to deny your bucket list.
I mean, how? I mean, you are making a 20-minute film. How easy is it to make a film nowadays? I mean,
ask us afterwards.
I mean, I think like back in the day when I was a kid, I mean, I would have loved to have made a film. I'm not going to deny. We seem to have to do more of this, given like digitization, portability, and open source software. Imagine like the cost level is way lower than it used to be.
Yeah, it absolutely. Since the advent of digital sort of cinematography, and particularly since things like DSLR cameras and things like even stuff like the Blackmagic Pocket. I'm not shilling for them, by the way. I mean, chance would be a fine thing.
Yeah.
But sort of like these very small form digital affordable cameras where you can do sort of full HD sort of up to 4K quality. It's much cheaper to do the actual filming. And there's a lot in terms of obviously advertising that you can do through social media and stuff. I'd say there is still a ceiling whereby you have to kind of like, if you want your film to be up there in the big leagues, there's still a sort of price barrier, and of course like things like props and stuff are still as expensive as they ever were. But yeah, getting hold of the tech is much easier.
Well, I mean, we are shooting this very much on a sort of beg, borrow, or deal basis.
Yes, very much so. And it feels like there is one other thing that sort of feels like the age of the crowdfunder, because I think like Pat and I have worked on several projects before, several sort of short film projects, and I've worked on a couple that had sort of like successfully funded Kickstarters and things like that. But it feels like the age of the crowdfunder is sort of dying off a little bit, because there are just so many projects, and so there was a kind of golden age of kickstarting and sort of crowdfunding everything, which is not to say that it is not possible to do this sort of stuff anymore, but it does require a bit more legwork. There was a time where it was it felt a lot more like that was your path to getting a short film made. But as Pat says, sort of we've got a fantastic team together, I think, who are all sort of quite experienced and professional, but they are all at this stage doing it from goodwill and keenness to be in the project. So
yeah, I mean it's like it was very much when we were starting. It's like I would love to be able to pay money, especially to the actors and the crew, because I've done a lot of stuff gratis in films, and I know it's like with the best will in the world, you can be working on the best thing ever. It's always work. It's always not necessarily a slog, but it's always tough. So I very much appreciate everyone who's stepped into work for us, and like I say, this was at the start. Myself and Pix, we were going, is there any way we can get some funding? Can we like give them a little bit, anything? But we're trying. But
so was this all self-funded then? This one?
Yeah, basically it's what we've got in our pockets. Essentially, is the budget. But like I said, we've got a lot of very talented people working with us, and I think we can like for example, our editor, he recently they helped me out by just doing some editing on some footage. Like actually, it was Pix and I shot about 10 years ago, and it's come back looking absolutely fantastic. Doesn't look anything like it was shot by two students in a basement. But
somebody got a phone going, by the way. There's some interference
going. Nope.
Yeah, but yeah, it's all fantastic talent. Yeah, most of them I've worked with before, but everyone they've all either been highly recommended by somebody that I kind of whose opinion I respect, or they're or I've seen what they've been doing, and it's great stuff. So yeah.
So how do you get around? So we've got a couple of friends. So there's a guy called Jamie McKellar who does some stuff for Geek Pride now and again. He he crowdfunded a film that you may or may not have heard of. It's called Chesterburg, and it's about a town that where there's some loophole. Murder is legal, and it's like a proper sort of slasher type film. And that went on Kickstarter, so they backed that. Then there was obviously our friends at Sneaky Zebra who did. They're currently doing a Star Wars fan film, and it's sort of kind of in between sort of Return of the Jedi and sort of tail end of. It's just before the Force Awakens, I think, and it's all about sort of getting Darth Vader's mask and stuff. And they did that on Indiegogo. Obviously they got money to pay for slightly more sort of visual effects and things like. How did you get around that? How did you get around that sort of side of things?
Ask us after we've shot it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's sort of like at the moment, we are gearing up for our first day of shooting.
Yeah.
But it's all the in terms of post production, it's going to be sort of as and when our team can sort of manage to do it, basically. But I think like the thing is, at the moment, the project is running very much on the fact that everybody involved thinks it's really good, thinks it's really good fun, and but I don't know, Pat, are you allowed to talk about because I know you met several of the crew who I was not, I wasn't previously aware of on another film project.
Yeah, well,
are you allowed to talk about that?
I mean, it's been released now, so I assume so. We were. I met quite a few of them working on a film called Calling Nurse Meow, which was a sort of anthology film. And I mean, I don't really know much to say about that. It was a great experience. I'd been out of acting for a while. I hadn't been doing anything really, and I just sort of fell into it by chance. And it was like, you can make films, and it's really great. Was the thing, and then it was collaring pics and going, because I know Pix had a similar experience on. Was it Red Skies?
Yes, I saw Red Sky, which is a film that our mutual friend Lewis Bruff put together, and Lewis is an amazing filmmaker, but he decided to shoot a western in England, and so we went and found this place called Teen Ranch, which is it's a Christian sort of away day sort of thing. So sort of you get the youth groups come to this kind of Wild West themed sort of getaway, and so we shot, and they have horses there and everything. Like everything looks really kind of authentic, and so we shot there. So we shot this sort of short film western, and it was absolutely amazing as an experience. Really, really good. And that was a few years ago. And I sort of haven't been involved with many film projects over the last few years because I've been doing a day job instead, and that kind of sucks
Damn
your
you,
time
day job.
away. Yes, exactly. It sucks your time away. So it's really lovely to get a chance to work on another project, which is going to be such good fun.
Yeah.
And it's all in the sort of like, when you make a short film like this and you kind of do it on a shoestring, and you kind of really, and if you get a good product, the key is then to sort of like take it around the festivals, get a buzz going, so that you can go on to better projects. Be like, well, us and our team have done this. Why not give us a little money to do something even better? And give us something like even longer, and sort of and I think that's what we're hoping to do in the long run. And you'll find so we've got like a little list of horror film festivals that we're definitely planning to submit to once it's done.
Do you have much to do with Quad and Derby?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I've certainly been involved with them in the past, because they do have a lovely little sort of horror festival, I think.
I was thinking that. Yeah, is it Paracinema?
I don't actually know. It's because it's been a little while since I lived there, but we have a couple of places in Nottingham as well, in the far-flung lands of Nottingham.
Yeah, I mean, what's it like shooting in and around Derby and Nottingham? I mean, like I assume like you do like on location shooting, but how do you manage that when essentially, as you say, you got no budget in a sense?
Well, this is the thing. This is actually how I wound up on the Calling Nurse Meow project and it's actually the origin of the name of our production company. In fact, is there was on one of the sort of discords for creatives in the East Midlands, or I think it was more Nottingham focused. Somebody was asking and saying, "We're doing a film. We need a forest." And my friend Gary has a forest, and so I went.
Your friend
well,
Gary has a forest.
Yeah, well, he owns some woodland, and it was like, well, there's a forest, and that's why we're called Gary's Forest. But that wasn't for this. That was for their thing, which was by screening. But anyway, so it's essentially, again, it's beg, borrow, and deal. Like, I mean, a lot of this film, a lot of what we've got planned for this film, we are shooting in essentially what I suppose would be our studio. It's our producer's studio that is in Derby. We've got some scenes that we are shooting, I think, in our producer's house, and it's just, yeah, we just have to knuckle down and find the places. But we there are some people, and it is like, how do you find these places? Because it'll be things like I've in sort of this kind of thing, this screen making. In fact, actually, originally there was a short. I did a short a long time ago for a Grindhouse Film Festival, which I wrote. I didn't direct, which was the sort of the progenitor for this project. And we shot that in an abandoned cinema. And nice. It's like, where did you find this? But it's, it was just I think just finding the people who know what they're doing.
I think sometimes there's another fellow we know called Matt Johns, and he's done a lot of shorts. One of which I think it's called a Father's Day. It's like it's basically about it's a zombie, like 10 minutes, and it's basically about a father and a daughter enjoying sort of like a weekend together, but they're both zombies. And I think that got into Sundance. I got a Sundance Film Festival, and I don't think he had a massive budget for all of that. I think he's done a fair few, and I've watched a few of them. They're really well done on shoestring budgets. And I was saying, it feels to me that sometimes if you have the budget, people expect more from it. Whereas if you're basically saying that this is us just doing this film, and you do it then when they're not expecting, massive sort of explosions and things like that, but what they get is a lot more rewarding in a way.
Yeah, I think in many ways it's actually. So this is going to sound very strange, but let me explain myself. In many ways, it's kind of almost easier to make a decent movie on a very small budget, because if you've spent a lot of money on a film and it is terrible, it's horrible, isn't it? If you've been to the cinema and you've seen a real stinker of a film, and it's like,
of course you can't lose money. Whatever box office we may get, we won't lose money because we haven't spent money.
Yes.
But it's
joke's on you. We didn't spend any money.
Like you didn't. But sort of like, and famously, sort of like some of the biggest kind of like box office smashes have been not the ones that made the most money overall, but have been the ones that cost the least. So got like, if you can make a film for not very much money and get a decent return, that's actually a much more profitable enterprise. Like famously, I think it was there are much better modern examples, but I'll sort of give a silly example that Carry On Cleo sort of Carry On film that reused all the Cleopatra sets was a much more profitable enterprise than the sort of Cleopatra film, because it was so cheaply made.
Yes.
Just sort of, and also in terms of, sort of making things on like a very limited budget, it comes back to that, necessity is the mother of invention, because when you've got loads of money and limitless potential, you can get lazy. Because you're making a small film for a small amount of money, you kind of get creative, and you sort of and you're sort of thinking about like, how can we do this in a way that looks good, but without having necessarily infinite resources. And I think that's a very important part of it, and it kind of applies to all artistic endeavor, really, but filmmaking particularly, because it's such a multifaceted. I've often thought it's one of the hardest art forms, because you have so many collaborators, all of whom are practicing their own kind of little craft, and they all coalesce together. And so it really does mean, like, if everyone's being inventive and creative on set, you can come up with a really great result. And that's definitely what I'm expecting, because we've had sort of like some just amazing ideas from our team so far. So yeah.
But I mean, there's been some fantastic films that have been made on a small budget. I mean, just look at Blair Witch Project or Wreck in Spain.
Yeah, those are better examples than the Carry On film.
The Carry On
much better.
Wreck. Oh,
that was awesome. Yeah, because found footage, of course, which is I don't know what your opinions are of found footage films.
They're fine as long as they don't use shaky cam.
You know what, Blair Witch Project is I loved that film, and I loved it. I remember going to watch it, and I remember I was in there's a place called Glengormley in back home in Northern Ireland, and it's where the cinema was, where we used to go to. I just remember being in there, and like halfway through the film, this fucking guy just walked up, "This film is fucking shite," and walked out. And I was loving it, because for me, horror is about the psychology. It's all about sort of like, the one thing I loved about it was because you didn't know what was going on. It was literally all in your mind and stuff, and it was just like very real, very visceral. And just the bit at the end where he's, the sort of kind of camera sort of gliding down the stairs, and then she's screaming and it's getting away, and then he's just standing in the corner, and I was just like, that's freaky as hell.
There's the thing about that scene that I love, and it's the fact that she's screaming and it sounds far away,
because it's not her with the camera, it's
because she's got the camera, but the sound the sound thing is, and it that's such a nice little touch. Yeah.
It's just like, that was really good. I know Pete didn't appreciate it, but I thought that for me, growing up in a village where, in the middle of nowhere, and there being forests around and going camping and stuff, and freaking, that whole thing, just so I was just like, my car got a puncture. Like I just watched it. I was driving my mum's car, right? I got a puncture outside this old sort of building where they used to hang convicts in the village where I am, in this ancient place, and I was just like, oh my god, this is where I die. This is where I die.
You're living the first scene of horror.
It was just, oh my god.
The film, like I say, I again, like I said, that I like that, the kind of the touch, the creative touch, but I'm not wonderfully fond of found footage movies. But there is a film called Borderland, which is found footage, and it's one of my favorite films. It's a really profoundly kind of affecting movie, and it's just about, basically most of the film is just these two guys hanging out and talking about the stuff that's going on around them. And I know it's sort of show don't tell is supposed to be the word, but I don't know, it's a very unsettling movie.
It just works.
Two guys talking to each other it just works. It's amazing.
Well, I mean,
Sorry, Pete.
So,
Carry on.
one thing you were saying about the abandoned cinema I mean, there's loads, when you kind of just look around. I mean, because having like a restricted budget, you kind of are compelled to kind of really look around and find decent places. And when you do look, you do find some amazing places. I mean, like, like during lockdowns in the past couple of years, we kind of would just go for walks in the area. We found some amazing like buildings. Like, there's the Ambergate Wire Works near where we live, which is like there's the abandoned factories, but they've got like a right of way right through the middle of them.
Ooh.
Which is just
fascinating.
Exactly. It's like
noted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally about 10 miles from Derby.
There you go. Location scout Peter Ray Allison.
Yeah.
In the credits right there.
Get the credit right there.
Walking through Shiny Cliff Woods.
Get a pen.
And they just walk through Shiny Cliff Woods. You go and walk this like densely packed woodland. And then you find yourself in the middle of like post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah.
And they're back into some woods.
I have to say, sort of like, as somebody who grew up in the utterly soulless suburbs of the home counties, when I moved to the Midlands, I was absolutely enchanted by like just all the old buildings and all the sort of whether they be abandoned or not. Like, and obviously that we have more mills than you can shake a stick at around here, but sort of just absolutely amazing. And there is a very well known, I think it's one of the old Midland Railway buildings in Derby, which is a sort of abandoned now, and it's a sort of abandoned sort of factory looking
Is it
place.
in Chester Green?
I couldn't tell you these days, but it is goodness. So I've set myself up for a building I can't even remember. But we, like myself and sort of a couple of when I was a film student back in the day, we filmed there, and I don't think that there was, it was just such a great location because it's this sort of giant shell, giant sort of brick shell which is kind of rotting and overtaken with ivy, and it just looks absolutely amazing. And so if you were a photography student or a film student, you could sort of sneak your way in through, and they were perpetually bricking it up because it was a hazard. It's a very, very dangerous place to go. But yeah, it's I think that sort of like the local area around here is absolutely amazing for sort of just found locations. For example, I mean, obviously you have caves in Nottingham. In Nottingham, you also there are underground water tunnels. There are a couple of really interesting sort of urbex videos on YouTube where guys will sort of pop in. You can access them from the River Trent, and these little underground canals basically, and you can kind of walk up sort of for miles and miles. I don't think we'll be doing any filming down there unless we've got enough waders for the entire cast and crew. But if you wanted to sort of shoot something, if you wanted to shoot a sort of a horror film, like, which required, that sort of thing, you could easily do something like that there. And we do have some absolutely wonderful locations around here. But yeah, it's just a matter of kind of finding the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I tend to do when I'm walking around, because I have a background in engineering and architecture, is I walk around and I look up. So I'm not looking at the
ground level.
The ground level. I kind of look up the first and second floors, and like the architecture is so different. And my eyes, I prefer it. I don't like the kind of facades in all the kind of white plastic facades. I prefer show me the weathered brick and the concrete.
Yeah, well, I mean, because Derby's quite a small city, but it's an ideal example of what you're talking about. Because if you walk sort of down the high streets of Derby and you see sort of like it's all like a spa or a vape shop, or or whatever down at the bottom, and then you look up and it's absolutely gorgeous sort of like Georgian sort of facades, sort of like old old bank buildings, or sort of like I don't know what they were, but I like any building that has the the makers had the confidence to put the name of the building and the business in stone. It's like this bit. I am so confident that this will always be, Franklin and Sons Brewery, that I'm going to literally carve it in everlasting stone. And these days are like, nah, probably in 2 weeks it will be a vape shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was that. But that's history, and I like the way kind of you look at a building and they tell you the history of it, and I think that can carry through into the film when he's used as location, because there's like a lot of green screen used now, and you tend to lose a lot of the texture you get with like a real world physical shoot. There's a granularity that you just don't get in.
Agreed.
Yeah.
There's a fun little like sound bite. I think it was Mikey Newman, and he was talking about The Hobbit, and he was saying that they spent like millions upon millions of dollars to make the forests in The Hobbit look like forests, and he was comparing it to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where they went to a forest. And it's like, you know,
the thing is, you can tell, like, I don't mind a little bit of CGI to sort of augment something, but the one thing, like, I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan, I love it, but The Hobbit was just overused to the point where, you know, the whole premise behind sort of Lord of the Rings was the tangible, physical props and bigatures, as they called them, all the sort of kind of models and things, which they seem to have completely did away with when they had in The Hobbit, which was literally just super CGI'd, and it just took the edge off it for me. You know, not also the fact that it was drawn out way too long for three films, but you know, I didn't like the fact that it was over CGI'd. It just it takes something away from it. You know, you need. I prefer something. It's like the Star Wars films, you know, when they, you know, the one of the big things about the prequel trilogies was that they overdid the CGI. Now, granted, it was very like green screen or blue screens, as it was back in those days and stuff, was new technology, and they were sort of kind of, you know, they pioneered it in a certain way, but because it was completely different than what the original Star Wars films were, it had a completely different tone and edge.
It had disconnected, tonal disconnect.
Disconnect.
I think you can work with something that has heavy computer effects if you are going for a sort of stylized thing. Like, for example, I think the opening scenes in Thor: Love and Thunder are very good looking, and that is basically all just computers. But yeah, if you're trying to be something that is looks like, because the old Star Wars films, they had that kind of, that era of sci-fi look to them where everything was very kind of functional and clunky and
angular,
and it all looked fantastic. And then of course, so the and I was, I don't know how old I was when Phantom Menace came out, but I remember in my little child head, this was my thought process, was how come the spaceships in this look all smooth and angular and cool and futuristic, but it's supposed to be about 50 years before where everything is a lot more old-fashioned.
Yeah,
you see, they're sort of changing it now. You see, especially like the Mandalorian and in the Mandalorian and in what's it called, Andor and stuff. They're using the old school sort of like look to Star Wars. They actually started doing it. They actually started doing it at the tail end of the most recent films as well, where they were sort of kind of, no, was it the new ones? Actually, I'm trying to think. No. Sorry, the Mandalorian and stuff. They started using these things. Oh, which one? What was it that they sort of you can tell there's a difference. You can see they're actively trying to tie it in with the original films, basically.
It was Mandalorian that started kind of bringing in various elements from the original trilogy and tie it all in together.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like because I've always been a big physical effects buff. Like I love, like things like films that use stop motion and physical effects and sort of practical effects, like
Squibs.
Squibs and things like the gribbly monsters, like The Thing.
Yeah.
And when they actually have, because I'd rather see rather see a slightly dodgy physical effect than a dodgy CGI effect.
Yeah.
Because with a dodgy physical effect, you can tell it's really there, and it is a real thing. So even though whereas with a dodgy CGI effect, you're like, oh, that's not even real. It's just,
but also, if you got sorry.
Wet puppets.
Yes, wet puppets. We do like a
But I was in calling Nurse Meow, the film we were talking about before. I actually get disemboweled at one point, and in order to do that, we had some tights that were just stuffed with cornflour syrup. and it looks good on the film. It gotta.
I have to say,
that's the thing. If you
the real effects affect me. I remember it's funny you mentioned The Thing, because one of the most lasting sort of memories of my childhood brain of being absolutely petrified of something was the bit in The Thing where the doctor's doing the compressions on the guy's chest, and his chest opens up and takes his hands off. And
that still gets me today.
Yeah, I remember that so vividly because my dad, we were in a video store. There's a small village, small town near where my village is, called Whitehead. There used to be a video store, and my dad was like, just wait here. I'll go in and get the video for us to watch and stuff. And I ignored him. I just sort of kind of walked into the video store, and I was eating a fudge bar at the time. I was sitting there eating a fudge bar, and I just remember looking up at the screen, and they were playing The Thing, and this thing was happening. So this guy just puts his hands like this chest opens up, takes his hands off, and I'm sitting there, and I swear to God, I did not eat fudge for like for easily like 20 years. It was got to the point where I had this sort of thing that I could not eat it because it just gave me that feeling of horror that this gave me, and that was all physical effects and stuff. I remember seeing stuff like that wasn't like CGI stuff, and it didn't bother as much, but that freaked me out to the point where I was put off fudge for like a decade. A long time.
What we're saying about you said about physical effects is, if you have one that you feel not up to scratch, you can still work with it. I mean, famously, Dog Soldiers, Neil Marshall felt that the werewolves just weren't, suitable for like full light, close-ups. So they kind of just took lessons from Jaws and kind of used them kind of as a fleeting background image that you never got a good chance to look at them. But what you did see was sufficient.
That is a master. Yeah. That film is a masterclass on how to balance humor and horror together and get a really it's just so good, because it's like you can get films that they overdo one side and it takes away from the other. You were talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. That is a film that suffers so badly from them over pushing the comedy that it takes away from the dark edge of it.
The tragedy.
The sort of dark edge to it. Whereas Dog Soldier is such a good balance between the sort of comedy, but yet of the horror side of it, that they don't detract from each other, and so you are petrified, but you're also sort of like laughing away, like, I hope I give you the fucking shits. It's just
Yeah, but that sounds like good. One thing I've been wanting to ask is, given the stance of Allie, it's going to be a fair bit of, splatter horror, but also a bit of action.
Yes, yeah.
How do you manage the choreography and stunt work?
So,
well, none of our performers are not stunt performers.
Yeah.
So we it's the way I can only speak from what has been done before in terms of, but it's essentially sort of there's a lot of camera play involved in terms of like if you're shooting an action scene, if you want to make it look good, a lot of it is about camera movement as well as performer movement. But the way, in terms of sort of if we're shooting an action scene, it would be breaking everything down into the smallest movements, small simple movements, which anyone can do. You don't have to be a sort of martial artist to do these things, and breaking it down in that way so that everybody knows exactly what's happening, and you can get some really spectacular looking stuff from that. But it's it's a combination of how you use your camera, how you're sort of like filming it, your cinematography, as well as getting performers who are confident, and of course the old-fashioned, very boring rehearsals.
Yes,
You're just going through things
it again
over and over again.
But there is a lot to be said for how much effect you can get out of a movement in action if you just carry the camera with it.
Yeah.
You can get a lot more weight, like say out of a simple punch, if your camera is coming with and gives you the extra bit of push
kinetics.
you need. Yeah, exactly, the kinetics.
Exactly.
But it is no coincidence that all the action scenes that we are shooting are being shot at the end of the set when we've got all the other stuff under our belts and hopefully have a bit more experience putting it all together. But
and if anyone gets hurt, it's not too bad because it's at the end.
Somebody punches a camera by mistake, then it's
yeah.
it's not a big loss.
Please, if anybody from the cast or crew is watching, please do not punch a camera.
Lesson 1 of indie cinema: don't punch the camera.
Don't punch the camera. Just all cinema. Don't punch the camera.
Well, there was I remember, I love Jackie Chan films, and I also was watching the outtakes. And there's one, I think it was Shanghai Noon, when he's kind of throwing an axe and he's meant to kind of float straight past the camera, and it goes straight into the camera instead. And he goes, "Oh!"
Oh man!
Yeah.
Oh man! So, what's the timeline on this then? So, what's the timeline on the filming and?
Filming hopefully is going to be done by. This is going to sound very nerdy. Filming will hopefully be done by LARP season, but sort of end of April is when we are hoping to have it all in the can. Development time, I couldn't possibly say at this point because I don't know what footage we're working with. But I'm hoping it'll be out by the end of the year, or not necessarily out, but it'll be in a viewable state by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then I imagine we'll be looking at sort of festivals and things, possibly around that time, possibly later. At this point, we can't really put a kind of concrete timeline on it, mainly because we don't know how much, if there's going to be any extra expenses incurred, anything like that along the way, that pushes everything back.
Yes.
So that's then again.
Yeah, we'll say principal cinematography by end of April. And then it all goes into post-production, which is
that's all professional, isn't it? Eh?
Yeah, I know.
I have to say, I do feel very professional. I haven't worked on a film before where we have like regular crew meetings to discuss kind of like what's happening. So it does feel very big boy pants to be kind of sitting there.
What's been the biggest expense for you as a team?
That's an interesting one because it's sort of like I think it's probably just it's not going to be on any one. It's probably going to be sort of things like set dressing.
Yeah.
Which is like because we're working with limited sort of locations and
we have to make one studio look like 3 locations.
Exactly. We need to make things look really nice. We're sort of trying to make it look as good as it possibly can. So it's probably going to be sort of things like props and set dressing.
Yeah.
But also, you're never quite sure before you do a sort of like an intricate sort of pricing structure, which will be something that we are doing within the next sort of couple of weeks and things. Where we're talking about it could be craft services.
It could.
I mean,
I suspect that it might be.
I mean, you need to, like an army, a film marches on its stomach. So if we're sort of like, making sure that we keep, in lieu of payment, we're keeping our cast and crew well fed.
So Costco sandwich platters it is then.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Frozen
big old
pizza.
gruel. Film gruel from a single pot.
No, I believe I did mention in one of the production notes that snacking is not forbidden on the set and is actually actively encouraged, because we need to get through the day somehow.
Yeah.
But yes, no, it is. I can see the thought is, it's going to be in like the blood or the props or the tools or the costumes, but really it is in keeping people aware and fed and comfortable, basically. That's I think very important to me, because I'm essentially I'm in a position of responsibility over these people, and like, much as you hear a lot about directors who are very, very kind of like, I need to make sure everybody feels horrible so that they can act like they're feeling horrible. Don't do that.
Keep them awake.
No,
go around their house, they're banging on the door and stuff.
Weird.
Don't scream at your actress like and do 400 takes in a row. I don't care who you are.
Who was that?
Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick was well known for being a bit of a dick when it came to these sort of things.
I was reading this article about the film of The Abyss, and apparently Ed Harris punched James Cameron.
I mean, if only he'd done it before he made Avatar.
To anyone who's working on this movie, please do not punch the director. In fact, I might prefer it if you punch.
Or
the
no
camera.
Snacks for you. No snacks for you if you punch the director.
Yeah, that's the caveat. If it comes down between punching the director and punching a camera,
punch the director.
Actually, to be fair,
directors can be replaced.
Directors are cheaper, cameras are expensive.
That's why we have assistant directors. Yeah. Oh boy.
So I guess we'll have to have you back on to see how it goes. It's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely.
I'd be very interested to see, because this is obviously the very start of the journey. I'd be interested to see the different sort of barricades and hurdles you've got to go through, obviously, because there's always that sort of kind of, you've got that how you want things to go, and then there's the reality of how they do go and what sort of issues you came up with, and I think that'll be quite good for people to hear, because then it's like people
before and after.
Before and after.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think often you learn a lot more from your struggles and your difficulties and your errors. And I mean, I'm not saying anything at this stage, but sort of sometimes your failures.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I'm absolutely sure that this will be like an awesome result. But like we're probably going to have a few struggles along the way. But you just learn so much more.
Yeah. You do learn from the films that don't quite work.
But then we've had a few of those already, haven't we?
We have, yes.
Okay, so give us some examples then. So what valuable lessons have you learned from other experiences?
Well, I mean, I suppose one thing that I've definitely learned is to always budget time for pickup shots, because you go through and you're like, oh well, I've written this really intricate set list, sort of this kind of like this shot list where I'm that's like, oh, we're going to have a close up here and a thing here, and then you get it all back into the edit, and you're like, I'm missing these bits. I thought that I'd got everything I needed. So one of the things I was very sort of keen when we started looking at sort of how we were going to schedule days and how we were going to sort of do this is to budget time for being like, well, we want to review the footage and then we want pickups, and whether that's on trying to get it the same day, or having a definite day, because once it's shot and once the sort of production team have disbanded and they're all working on other projects, then it suddenly becomes very difficult to get people back.
It's actually tanked Phil. Well, not tanked. It's sort of stopped a film project that we worked on quite a while ago. If you remember, Sandra Nova.
Oh yes, yeah.
That's the face. we never finished it, did we? It was just
Why was that? Why was that?
We just
yeah. Sorry, you go.
We failed to shoot. We filmed it in a rush, and we failed to shoot something on the shooting day, and it just never came up again that everybody was available. So
very frustrating.
Very frustrating, yeah.
But again, it does teach you things, and I think the other lesson, because I'm very much and I think that most people are who work on these kinds of things. We're new project people, so we get really excited about a new project. We get halfway through it, and then it's sort of like, oh wait, I've lost interest. I'm
yeah. Well.
And so the other thing I've learned is to really keep up the momentum, to just keep on going, because it's very easy to sort of do principal photography if you don't have a deadline, if you don't have a studio pressuring you to complete something, or a sort of or a commission, someone who has commissioned you. You can finish on a film, say principal photography, and then feel like the edit is something that you can afford to take a long time on, and then suddenly that long time becomes distracted by new projects. So to keep up that momentum, to keep up that enthusiasm is an incredibly important, particularly in a film project which can take a long time to finish.
Neil, sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, which is why it kind of helps, and it's something that I think that both I and Pix kind of benefit from sort of each other in this way, because we are very, very kind of like, well, when one of us starts to flag, the other will pick up the slack and make sure everything's going on, and what are we doing kind of thing. Oh yeah, that thing that we've been doing that lots of people are waiting for, kind of thing. Yeah.
Neil Monroe. Neil Monroe says on YouTube, "Don't shoot out in the rain."
Yeah, thanks, Neil.
Well, that was actually our producer, Neil Monroe, and yes, he is referring to that was our first film, wasn't it? That was the very first film.
Was that Plastic Vultures?
Plastic Vultures, yes, which we had to abandon because of the rain. Yeah, that was a bad one. We were thinking about sort of cutting the footage we'd gotten into a sort of documentary, but maybe we will. Maybe put it on. Put it out of this one.
Yeah, I remember my sister saying to me, so when Game of Thrones filmed in Northern Ireland, like everybody in Northern Ireland had somebody who was an extra in there or something. Like my sister was an extra, a load of my friends were extras. One of my friends was the assistant AD for Game of Thrones, and she was saying to me, my sister was saying to me, that one of the days they were filming, it was raining, and then the rest of the days it wasn't raining. So we just had a follow. Thank you for joining. It's very loud in my ear, though. Apologies. If you've literally just been frightened like I did when the new subscription button kicked in there, my apologies. Thanks for the subscribe. She said to me, it started raining the first day when she was doing her bit, like, was Winterfell. But because it wasn't raining the next days, for continuity, they had to bring in basically rainmakers. They're the same. So even it was nice warm day, they were just raining on them. So they had to stand in the rain in all of the shots, even though because it wasn't raining that day, because they had to keep the continuity up. So, what else was I going to say to you is, so obviously we're looking. You're looking. A deadline, no deadline really. So we're not sort of potentially this year.
End of year completion.
End of year completion.
Yeah, I mean, we have a producer, so kind of deadlines are kind of up to him.
That's right, Neil.
But yeah, we don't have anything set solid yet. Once we've got, as I say, once we've got the films, once we've done the photography, then we sit and we plan the post-production, we plan all of that, the editing and all of that, and we get that into chunks. Because we're not working for money, our editor, who is again fantastic, but anyone who's working on this will be prioritizing paid jobs, so that will also be a factor in like how long it takes to make. So we can't guarantee anything at this stage, but when we know, we will be able to well, I mean, this is the thing where when we know, there'll be some kind of announcement that it's kind of ready. And if you like, we'd be happy to come back on then. And,
yes, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Right. So
oh,
you do know, chaps, that when you write on that thing, it pops up on front of your face on Skype and stuff. So
I was wondering if
we've had a full conversation. People are like,
Yeah.
So we know.
I was trying to be sort of subtle by popping it in the chat, but yeah, no, I think I might have to zip off.
Yeah, that's
soon.
no problem. We'll leave it here then. We'll not subject you to our pop quiz and stuff as you have to go. So, but we'll get you on.
I'm happy
Yeah,
to stay
that
for
can
pop
stay.
quiz,
Oh,
but-
right, okay.
I did just want to make one quick aside, because I've been looking at the shelves behind you there, Pete, and I have to commend your taste
Of Cyborg, yeah.
Yeah, Cyborg. I've also got Morkborg, and I should be getting Pirate Borg very soon. Excellent. Yes, I do like a bit of Free League publishing.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
I do like Free League, and I think you can also see got a Strontium Dog badge from 2000 AD.
Yeah.
You can also see the massive bow in that sort of that bookshelf is going to. I'm waiting. I am just waiting because it's getting lower by the day. I'm just waiting for it to drop and break, because that happened to one of my. I had the same. Well, actually, maybe it doesn't look as sturdy as that, but I had a bookcase similar to that, and I had too many heavy books on it, and it just went boom like that and fell off.
No, it will be perfectly fine.
Famous last words, Pete. All right, Pixel.
It has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much.
We'll let you go. We'll subject Pat to the pop quiz then, and well, you go. But it's been a pleasure. Come back on.
Yeah. Awesome. That would be lovely. I would love to do that. And best of luck, Pat. I know you'll do well quizzing without me.
See.
Yeah.
I'll see you next week, Pix.
See you soon, chaps. You look after yourselves.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care of yourselves.
Let's see if we can do this now. Oh no, we've got this. We'll move this over here, and then this will be like it's a thing. Bump a dump.
It's suddenly very big.
Yeah, let me
There we
do
go. Oh,
this. Woohoo!
Better.
There we go. There we go. It wasn't seamless, ladies and gents, but it was close enough. It was close enough. Okay, so
I didn't notice anything.
Yeah. So what we usually do, sort of the tail end of our podcasts, when we sort of come to an end, is we sort of do like it's like
20 questions.
It's like a 20 questions thing, and it's basically you choose a franchise, and it can be anything you want. It could be Star Wars, it could be Lord of the Rings, it could be DC, it could be Marvel, and you pick a character, and we have 20 seconds to name the character you're thinking about. Don't be like Pete and think of something that's super obscure, or conversely something that's super easy, something in between. You know, Pete generally goes for really obscure Marvel characters and stuff that nobody's ever heard of.
I'm a child of the 90s Marvel.
Yeah. So, you know, just something relatively fun. So we all think of a character. You've got 60 seconds. Everybody's got 60 seconds to guess that character, and that's it.
So I think of the character.
You think of a character,
and I have to say what they're from, or
so you can tell us if what franchise it's from, and then we have to ask you questions, and then you can tell us if we're right or not. So Pete, do you have one as an example?
I do.
Is it super obscure?
No.
Okay. Is it super easy?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll.
Okay, it's from specifically Marvel Netflix.
Right. Okay. So Marvel, 60 seconds. Go. Okay. So it's a series then.
It is not a series.
Marvel. Oh, okay. Right. So, is it a film?
No, it's a character from a series from the novel.
Okay.
Did this character appear in a team up?
Yeah. Yes.
It's not.
Are they,
It's not the Iron Fist, is it?
No. Sorry, it does not have a series named after it. Is what I was trying to badly explain.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, do they have superpowers?
No.
Are they? Oh, and this was a Netflix one, so it's Marvel.
It was Marvel, specifically Marvel Netflix.
Right. Okay. So, were they in the Daredevil series?
Yes.
They were in Daredevil.
Was it Foggy Nelson?
Nope.
Right. So they were in Daredevil. It's not the Punisher because the Punisher had his own. So there's a minute up already. Okay. So last minute, we've got one question each, and then we get one more question each, and then we have to guess. All right. So let's get this. So Marvel series. They're in Daredevil. They don't have the name of their own.
And they don't have superpowers.
And they don't have superpowers. Are they female?
Yes.
Is it Elektra?
No.
I can't remember her name. Is it the lady that hires Matt Murdock, who Matt Murdock then hires?
Karen Page.
Yes. Is it Karen Page? Ah.
Who is it? Who is it, Pete?
That nurse.
Oh,
played by Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one. Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah. Oh, we had Nilo said Elektra on. We had Colin Wing as well.
She's a very cool, both very cool characters. I did like both, but yeah, I went with. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have one for us?
I'm going to say Ghostbusters.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh, interesting.
And just the films, like
just the films.
Because there is a very big.
I know, but we got the answer. We got to ask the questions, Pete. So okay. So okay, right. So Ghostbusters, 60 seconds. Go. So are they a part of the original series? The original film? Sorry.
Two films. Okay.
The original two films. Yeah. Are they in the second one?
Yes.
Are they in the fourth? Are they in the most recent?
No, they are not.
And then number 4.
Are they a Ghostbuster?
No.
Are they?
Oh,
okay. It's not Vince Clortho, is it?
No.
Okay. Is it their accountant?
That's Vince Clortho. That's Vince Clortho. That's Vince Clortho.
No, it's not.
What's his name?
No.
It's Lois Tully.
Lois Tully.
Oh, right.
Vince Clortho is the I'm going to be embarrassed if I forget this.
He's Rick
Zool
Moranis.
is the key. Zool is the key master. Vince Clortho is the gatekeeper.
Yeah, and he's Rick Moranis' character because he becomes their accountant. So that's why I was.
Yeah, actually, no, that is fair. Yes,
he becomes their accountant.
I was specifically thinking of the character of Lois Tully, not the entity that is possessing Lois Tully. So also, Vince Clortho does not appear in Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, no, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Because I was, okay, that wasn't his actual name. His name was, you're right.
His name is, sorry,
yes, very good, very good. I don't even. Do you know what it is? Because we do a Blood Bowl league. One of the guys' characters is named after all the Ghostbusters, and he's got Vince Clortho. And in my mind, Vince Clortho, it's not. It's Lewis Tully, and for some reason I had it in my head Vince Clortho. But very good, very good. All right, so I'm gonna hit you with how are you on your Game of Thrones?
Oh God.
How are
I stopped watching after season 1.
Oh no!
Okay. I stopped reading after book 1. So.
What? Oh no! What about Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings, I'm okay on. Okay. Are we talking films or books or which?
I can do both. I can do both. It's up to you. I'm happy. Okay, so I will go for Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Is this one going to be?
Is it a super obscure character?
No. It's not. Bear one minute.
Is it super? It is super obscure for us, but normal for Matt.
As long as it's not Figwit, I'll be happy.
Okay. It's let me just check something here just to make sure I've got him. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the character. Yeah, okay, we'll go with it. We'll see how it goes. Okay. So this is Lord of the Rings. I've lost my my timer here. Okay, so Lord of the Rings, 60 seconds, go.
Male or female?
Male.
Are they in the films?
They this character is not in the films, but yeah, okay. I can't really
are they good or evil?
They're evil.
Okay. Not in the films, evil.
Okay, are they in all 3 books?
They are in all 3 books, yes.
Huh.
No, wait, actually, this character is... Okay, I'll give you a clue, right? I'll give you a clue. This character is another name for one of the characters, okay? And he is in one book where his character, the other guy, that is him, is in all 3. And he's evil.
Huh.
He's evil.
And
is his other character good?
No.
Okay.
Are they human?
They are human.
Are they post-human?
No. Okay. So I'll give you the clue. Okay, so the character he's in the films, and so I'll give you there's a big clue because it's not obscure if you know the books. It's just sort of obscure if you just watch the films or you're not you haven't read the books in a while. But you have he's in 2 of the films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's in 2 of the films. Though he is... Oh, it's gonna fully give it away then if I do that. Okay, he's in 2 of the films, and he's in the characters in all 3 books. But this character, which is another name for him, is only in the last book.
Name for him.
Are they still alive or are they dead?
They are killed.
Is it Saruman?
It is Saruman, but what's the character?
Saruman of many colours.
No, it's
Saruman
he's got another name.
Oh, Sharky.
Yes, very good. Yes.
Damn it. Yes.
Yes. So for all of you who
I'd completely forgotten about that whole bit at the end.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend. He was like, I'm reading Lord of the Rings for the first time. I've only just ever seen the films. I've never got around to reading it. Is there any major differences from the books? And I was like, oh, he says, yeah. He's just like, Tom Bombadil. What the hell is that all about? And I was like, yeah, you can see why they sort of didn't have it in the film because it doesn't really add much to the whole Lord of the Rings thing because Tom Bombadil is such a free spirit and stuff. There's a few little bits and pieces which they change, and then I was sort of thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, and at the end, there's a bit at the end which is completely not in the films, which is sort of alluded to, but it's not there. So there's a big sort of bit at the end, the scarring of the Shire, the scarring of the Shire, and then obviously Sharky is that guy. Though it's a bit of a weird name for Saruman and stuff, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Congratulations, all got brilliant, very good, ladies and gents. Right.
They weren't all got. We didn't get Night Nurse.
Oh, we didn't get Night Nurse. Oh, Pete. There we go. All right, fine. It wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't a bad one, so we'll give that to you. It's not like, some really obscure Marvel comic book character. It was somebody we should have got.
Yes, you should have got it.
We should have got. Yeah.
Is Beak an obscure Marvel character? I don't know.
Have you talking about Marvel? Have you seen? Oh, on Marvel. Talking about. Have you got the DC? Have you seen the Flash trailer? The new Flash trailer?
No.
Yeah, so I'm in 2 minds about that because Ezra Miller is an absolute tool, but the film looks awesome and it's got Michael Keaton as Batman, and it's just like he just turns around and goes, "Yeah, I'm Batman," and you're just like, "Oh my god, it's Michael Keaton as Batman," and it actually could be really good. And this is going to be annoying because Ezra Miller's not exactly he's not covering himself in glory at the minute, so But yeah,
I really want it to be like Batman from The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, that kind of the grizzled former Batman who's just given it up.
I think if because if you're bringing Keaton back, I think the way to do that, if you're going to do it, is to do it as Batman Beyond and have Keaton be the old Bruce Wayne kind of.
Well, he's in his bat suit. He's in his bat suit. He's in his bat suit and stuff. So I'm not sure if they're going to do that. I think it's going to. I think this whole what is it? The what's the Flash timeline where he basically Flashpoint? Yeah. So it's going to be that. So it's a way for them to transition from the old DCU to the new DCU, so they can kind of get around some of the sort of things of not having Henry Cavill as Superman anymore. Yeah. But should be interesting, though. I'm just very much a case of I'm not sure how I feel about Ezra Miller. And it's sort of
well, I'm fairly sure how I feel about Ezra Miller, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, I have no interest in watching Ezra Miller. But I will say one thing: the trailer does look amazing. But okay, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
The fact that Ezra Miller is in it, thinking,
this is gonna be like. This is going to be a terrible confession, but the only DC movie I enjoyed was Shazam. So
Shazam's good. Do you know what? I loved.
Oh no! Wait,
the new Batman.
I did like the Robert Pattinson Batman.
Yeah. The new Batman's really good, and they're making a second one of that. I loved Man of Steel. I think people think he's white bread and he's boring and stuff, but I loved Henry Cavill Superman. I thought it was really good.
I liked Man of. No, I like Superman.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure I liked Man of Steel. I don't feel, and it's an odd one, because my problem with a problem that I was having with a lot of superhero movies at the time was that they always tend to go over the same story. For example, I was saying like you don't need to see Uncle Ben get killed every couple of years. It's just mean at that point.
Everybody, porn, basically.
But Superman like is not just a comic book character. Superman is like a cultural icon. You don't need to have a film explain who Superman is. But if you're going to deconstruct a character, which Man of Steel does very well, you should construct them first.
Yeah,
is my only problem with Man of Steel, because it takes the whole sort of the killing Zod thing, which of course is all from the comics, and goes, oh look, he's not as wonderful as he could be, but we never see him be the Superman that he takes that is then taken apart, if you know what I mean. That was my main problem with Man of Steel, I think. And then of course in Justice League they were like, oh yeah, he was that Superman that we never ever saw all along.
Justice League.
I'm not defending Justice League in any way. Like I said, Shazam was the only one I really enjoyed. So
that's fair.
That's my.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed.
If you liked Man of Steel, don't watch my movie. That's what I'm saying to all of you in the audience.
Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman, was pretty good until it got to the final arc, the final third part of it, and then it just went downhill. It just became so cliched, so boring. To the point where, oh look, there's the giant blue sky beam. And it's just like, no, it didn't work. But when there was the start of it and the middle of it was just brilliantly done.
It just kind of giant blue sky beam.
Yeah, and it's just like then you kind of get into the final arc of it, and it's just like it's become such a boring and stereotypical superhero movie.
It's interesting that a lot of the film was set up with this idea that. And I suppose setting it in World War One maybe not have been the best choice for this kind of thing, but it was the idea that the war was being kind of pushed by this thingy. But then it kicks to the end, and it's like, oh, but now it's just a baddie that we get to punch.
Exactly.
I think that happens a lot with a lot of superhero movies these days. You get a very interesting concepts start to build up, but in the end of the final act it kind of devolves into this
Punching.
thing that we can punch, like, and it's like that should not be your whole like they don't tend to do that in the comics. Like, there's a lot of punching in the comics, but like Immortal Hulk, and that's a Hulk story. It's a lot more cerebral. They kind of outsmart, or they figure it out rather than just going, I'm just going to hit you as hard as I can with whatever kind of energy beam that I can particularly do. And it looks fantastic. All of it looks amazing. But yeah, it's
I think DC, they suffered from, like, they felt like they were being left behind, so they rushed a lot of things, taking their time. And I think now with James Gunn taking over, they're kind of going. And as much as I really think Henry Cavill's I think he's great, and I think he's one, because he's a fellow nerd and he's into Warhammer and stuff like that, but two, because I think him as Superman I loved him as Superman. Like, to be honest, I like Ben Affleck as Batman. I thought he just had a bad script. I think the sort of thing. I've mentioned it so many times on this podcast before, but I understand kind of why James Gunn is doing it, because he's kind of going, right, this is lying onto this. We need to start again, and we need to build things up. So he's literally building stuff up block by block, so they can actually have something, because they know Marvel at this moment in time, they've had their big moment, they've had their end game, they've had that sort of Infinity War thing, and it's sort of, they're building up again, so they can now, on parity, build up with them. So it's like, right, we've stopped from that point, we'll start again, we'll start building things up, we'll have new heroes, we'll be able to sort of build the stories, we'll be able to link them together, because he's had this thing where we're going to link them into the TV shows, we're even going to link them into the cartoons and stuff, and everything's going to be joined together. And that's not to say that there's going to be things that are kind of outside of it, but there's going to be a definite sort of, this is DCU and this is outside of the DCU, and so we're going to build it up. And I think that's the right way to do it. Sort of small steps, build it up, build that arcing story, build those sort of things that are going to be the sort of the big bad, and then you have that big boom. And that's what Marvel did so well. So I think they've learnt that lesson.
And you have plenty of mythology to build on with DC, to build that universe. In many ways, more than Marvel, because it was going on for longer. You know, there's and I think you can't, if you shoot your load on Darkseid, or you know, like in your first kind of big movie, then where'd you go from there? I think that was one of the problems they made with Justice. I know it wasn't actually Darkseid, but it was. Is it Steppenwolf?
Yeah, Steppenwolf.
Yeah, Steppenwolf.
Yeah. So it's Darkseid in the uncut, the Snyder cut, because they kind of they sort of, I think Snyder cut's better because it gives a bit more. I think they give a bit more depth to it. It's longer, and I don't mind long films. Pete doesn't like long films.
I don't mind long films, but it's when they're padded out to the point where you could cut out chunks of the Snyder cut with no problems whatsoever, because there was so much slow-mo, the point that you made the entire film slow.
It's a little bit Darth Marenghi, really.
It was literally, we were heading the balls deep into Darth Marenghi.
Yeah.
And just like the pointless bits, like the whole cult around Aquaman. It's all set up, this weird cult around Aquaman. They don't do anything with it. Nothing actually explored. It's just like, there's this weird cult around Aquaman. And okay, tell me. No, that's it. And it's like, you could have cut that out.
I'd love to do this all night, but I can hear my wife shouting.
Sorry, that was my bad. We should have ended ages ago, but we kind of got we get segued.
No, it's any kind of discussion like this has the chance to sort of just go on and on and on. Me, essentially, but
okay,
maybe next time.
We'll leave it there. We'll get you back on to talk about how things went, and we can carry on our nerd out about Marvel and things. By all means, if you just want to come on and have a chat.
Very cool. Like hopefully, if we come on again, we'll have some clips that we can show you or something.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so for tonight, I've been Matt Geary. With me has been Peter Ellison.
Good night, everyone.
And our guest, Patrick King.
And Pixel More.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm Pixel.